our next. Oh, thank you. We are going to record this, by the way, if you haven't got the because quite a few people who can't make it have asked for us to record it, and we will send it only to those people that are registered. So we warmly invite your contribution, and you won't be blasted across the internet if you have any controversial opinions or whatever. But we'd like people to share in the discussion as much as possible. My name's Graham. For those of you who don't know me, I'm the CEO of ProfitAbility. So we are a game-based learning company. We specialize in building social, experiential, game-based learning experiences, and we tend to work with some of the kind of biggest companies in the world, like Cargill, and some of you on the call today, from PepsiCo, from Schneider Electric, Coach Hub, those sorts of places. So these events are really not designed to sell profitability at all, but it's designed to bring our network together to learn and share with each other. We run these about probably every couple of months, and they always work better when people realize it's a really safe space to share and to with a relatively small group of people, which I think there aren't that many opportunities. I know lots of people go to big conferences and things where it can be a bit difficult to get really meaningful interaction. But I think we've proved over the last couple of years of running these can be really valuable for them. So please do engage, ask questions, interrupt, and connect with each other, and after the call as well. You're very welcome to connect with us or with Bob, I'm sure, and with anyone else on the call. We've got some awesome organizations represented, like a real who's who of some of the global organizations. So when you do, if you do want to contribute, it'd be great if you want to just share the context that you're coming from and what company you're from. That'd be really cool. Just some standard admin stuff. If you want to, I know the practice is to keep yourself off camera, but if you want to turn your cameras on, that's great. We'll get a little bit more human, but appreciate people have got other things going on, and contributions can be in the chat thread or in the as you see fit. Really pretty relaxed. As I said, the purpose of these sessions is just to bring people together and connect with each other.
Yeah.
We will share details of future sessions in the next couple of weeks, for probably end of June. That's really it from me. We're going to have about an hour together today, and it's a little different, a slightly different format. We're going to hear, really excited to hear from Bob at Cargill, who are a really valued partner of ours. We've been working together for several years, and Bob, as you'll see, is a real thought leader in this space, and it's a great chance to learn really quite tangible examples of what a leading company and a leading L&D outfit is actually doing to tackle some of the leading issues of the day, not just around sustainability and commercial, but also around how they measure impact and communicate that back to the business, which we know is a key challenge for lots of you on the call. So that's enough of me waffling. I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and I'm going to ask Bob to kind of take over, introduce himself, and to start sharing his thoughts. But I repeat the invitation, please, to contribute, butt in, write stuff in chat, and Bob is totally prepared to take questions as we go. So all contribution is valuable.
Thank you, Graham.
Thanks. Over to you, Bob.
Okay, let me share my screen. Are you guys seeing my screen? There's going to be an annoying blue banner at the very top. So just ignore that. You'll get used to it. Well, hi, everybody. Thank you, Graham, for the handoff there. And I will start with a shameless plug, because Graham and the team at ProfitAbility have been great partners. I think the way they think about gamification and simulations for learning are really great and fascinating and effective. We've got a crowd pleaser. It's one of our highest rated NPS courses around strategic pricing that Graham and his team helped us build a game for, and it is absolutely a no pun intended, a game changer in terms of the learning experience. So really appreciate that, and I look forward to more great things to come. So I just wanted to, before I jump into my agenda, I just wanted to provide a little bit of background. So I am in learning and development at Cargill, and I work within our talent and performance COE. And what I describe it as I really work and help our business and function leaders sort of figure out where do we need to go, and then how best do we get there. I have an incredible team of people in the design, development, delivery, measurement spaces that are all wonderful and great at what they do. So it is a true team sport, and I love what I do. So I love helping figure out where we need to add and create value from a learning and development perspective. And I do encourage, if you've got questions or thoughts, just go ahead and interrupt. If you want to talk later or offline, just ping me. I'm happy to meet up and chat. So what we're going to do today, I'm going to go through, I'll give you a little bit of background about Cargill in case you're not familiar. There's some folks on the call that are actual customers of Cargill, so that's great. I'll give you a little bit of an overview of the course that we designed and developed and actually are running a cohort currently. So we are in the process of running this course right now. So I'll give you an overview of that just to set the context for sort of a behind the scenes look at 5 key focus areas that I thought would be interesting in terms of what went into building this course. So the first in the yellow sticky note is about clarifying the business need and the intended outcome using an impact mapping approach. So we'll talk, I'll show you a little bit of that and talk about that. The next one in orange is framing the experience as a high performance learning journey. And there's some considerations that go into that model, that perspective. And then sort of the grayish, I don't know, taupish color, maybe delivering incremental value using an agile approach. So the way we actually approached the project was from an agile perspective. We actually used a Scrum framework for that. And I am a certified Scrum master and product owner, but you know, I play many roles, and I can talk about what was really important through that lens. And then in green, well, putting the learner in the center and leveraging subject matter experts within a blended learning design. That's a mouthful, but I want to talk a little bit about that because it is so critical, and there's so much insight and intelligence within your own companies to unlock. We'll talk a little bit about that. And then the final last but not least is the blue sticky, measuring impact from 3 different angles: business, learner, and project perspective. So let's get into it. And I can't see the chat, so I know, Graham, I think you're monitoring that. So if anyone jumps in or has a thought or a question, absolutely, let's make this interactive and let's get into it. Okay, so a little bit about Cargill, just in case you're not as familiar with Cargill as maybe some other folks are. If you look at the purpose statement on the left, our purpose as an organization is to nourish the world in a safe, responsible, and sustainable way. And I've been with Cargill 6 years, and it's one of the best companies I've ever worked for in terms of leadership, in terms of walking the talk. Safety is critically important. Being responsible world citizens and sustainable in how we operate is absolutely woven into everything we do and every day of your life. So I'm very appreciative of that. And it makes it a lot easier as an employee because we don't just talk a talk. We walk the talk. So at a glance, we are probably a little bigger than 100, but we're around 155,000 and growing employees. We work in 70 plus countries. We've been around for more than 155 years. And we have a very diversified portfolio, the core of which is really around agriculture, food, animal nutrition and protein, and then financial and industrial and bio-industrial. And we've got customers in over 125 countries. So, we're a global player, and with being a global player comes a lot of responsibility. And then fiscal revenue, just to give you a sense of sort of size that way, about 134 billion in our fiscal 2021. So that's just a snapshot of the company. And then from a sustainability perspective, one of the great things about Cargill, we appointed a chief sustainability officer a few years ago. And we have a phenomenal team around global impact and sustainability. And we've got three kind of primary domains that we focus on: climate, land and water, and people. And I put the URL at the bottom. If you want to learn more, just go to cargill.com/sustainability. Our ambition is to be the most sustainable food supply chain, or have the most sustainable food supply chains in the world. And you can see some of the commitments there. So that's about us. But here's the thing: Cargill is incredibly customer driven. And as we talk about the course that we built and why we built it and how we built it, what I want you to keep in mind is the ethos of being customer driven is absolutely paramount to how we operate, especially if we think about it through the lens of commercial excellence. And we are here to help our customers creating value for their customers, for their consumers. And sustainability more and more is something that our customers take very seriously, and they're looking for, asking for, and expecting solutions to continue to operate in a more sustainable, equitable way. So let's jump into the course. I wanted to give you a snapshot of the course, just so you had this in your mind, provide a little bit of context before we jump into the behind the scenes parts. But we are talking about a course that our chief sustainability officer, our chief customer officer, came out with a real strong call to action. And it said, we are customer driven, needing to help our customers with more sustainable solutions. We are in it to win it together in partnership with our customers. And we do this pretty well in little pockets, but we need to do it well in lots of pockets, in lots of areas, in lots of our businesses. So we need to help develop the mindset, the skill set, the tool set of our commercial teams, especially our sales teams, along with our sustainability teams. And we need to help them work together more effectively, to sit down together, to sit down with the customer together, listening and uncovering and solutioning around those critical needs. And so that was really the call to action. And it was really great that it came from the highest level of leadership, and that it was and is a partnership between commercial excellence in the sales organization and our global impact and sustainability organization. What we ended up designing and developing is a 10-week learning experience, as you can kind of see on the right. We built this in 3 phases, and it mirrors a sales process that we use. And we'll get into the nitty gritty here in a moment. We are literally in week 8. We have a cohort going through this right now of, I think, 47 learners with 12 coaches. And we are in week 8 right now. And we will be concluding this class very first full week of June 6th. They'll be completing their large group activity in week 10. So it's kind of cool in the sense of this is happening as we speak. And so far so good. The feedback is really positive. There's always improvements we can make, and we always make them, but really positive feedback so far. So just keep this in mind in terms of this is the course. If you were looking at a one-pager, you'd see this diagram, this image of these 3 phases, these 10 weeks. This is kind of what we ended up with as we designed and developed it.
So how does you might be coming onto this, but this might be the slide, but I'm interested in like how that call to action translates into, okay, we need training to do this, because there's other solutions, aren't there?
Yeah, it's a great question. And so, yes, you did. So Graham, you anticipated this, but it also goes a little bit deeper, which is, and on that here, I can go back to that previous section. By the way, I'm using Mural right now, and Mural has been a game changer of a tool. I don't know if others on the call are using Mural or Miro, but I got to tell you, and this is a little bit of a sidebar, but when I did my Scrum Master certification, it was all done in Miro, and it was awesome as a learning tool, engagement tool, team building tool. And so I just was like, hey, I'm going to steal that idea and use that. And so we've started to use it not just for ideation and planning, but actually for training. And it's built into some of our courses like the one we're talking about. Graham, to your point, so we did focus groups, we did surveys. When we heard the customer need, we heard our chief customer officer, our chief sustainability officer talking about that one of the things we need to do is, because of our values, because of our value proposition as a company, and because of our commitment to being customer driven, we need to be as educated, prepared, and collaborative with customers in this space as possible. And that we, because it's a relatively new space, we only have a relatively few teams that are, sort of grounded in this. We have a huge opportunity. And so the survey results, the focus groups, the conversations we were having with the commercial team, and the feedback we were getting from customers through various inputs, including customer engagement and experience surveys, was we have room to grow and an opportunity to really excel in this space. So what became the next question then was, okay, so if that's what we're hearing, then what is the actual business need and intended outcome, in the sense of how do we frame up why and what we're trying to achieve from a learning and development, design and intervention perspective. And so we use a process called impact mapping for a couple of reasons. And what I'm showing you on the screen is, it's an actual template. It's a mural in and of itself. It can also just be a document. And we build it from right to left, meaning we start with the end in mind, and we ask kind of the what do you want to achieve question first, and then back into that, where you eventually get to your learning objectives. But if you look here at sort of steps 1 and 2 of the impact map, we start with what's the business rationale, what's the need, and where is it supported by data. So X number of customers, X number of conversations, X number of sales and commercial leaders are saying there is a need, there's these number of opportunities that we're seeing, and we haven't quite brought our teams together to really understand and then excel at having those collaborative conversations and knowing sort of what the sales team language, framework, and process is, and also what all the tools, terms, and opportunities are from a sustainability perspective. and that we want to increase the number of conversations, the number of opportunities in the pipeline, and that we want to ultimately grow our customers' book of business, and Cargill via that will succeed as well. And what that looks like from an impact in a performance outcome is that you're having better quality conversations, you're bringing in solutions, you're thinking not just about the short term, but the long term. You're thinking about building and adding value, real value. You're paying attention to value drivers or value levers that the customer really believes in and is motivated by. And so these things help you define and set your learning program design and development process up in a much more successful way. The other thing that we use the impact mapping approach for is, and it's, by the way, you can imagine having not just one session, but multiple sessions. So it's really good to do as a first way of having conversations, critical conversations with your stakeholders, with your sponsors, and then you can use the inputs you get and put in here with your design team, with your development team, with your delivery team, so that everybody understands that this all ladders up to or connects to a higher purpose, a higher business need, a higher business impact. We're not just doing learning for fun, or just because somebody said, hey, I think we need training on XYZ, right? So
are you having conversations with the customer at this stage, or are
no,
you just taking data that someone's given you from the customer function?
Correct. Yeah, at this stage, correct. It's when we talk about measurement and we talk about how we're tracking the impact of this learning journey, we will be gaining inputs or gathering inputs from the customer. These conversations in the impact mapping process are with our internal clients, project sponsor, stakeholders, and we're getting customer feedback via those folks and those customer surveys, those experience and customer engagement survey inputs.
And how does those other sponsors from maybe in the business, like we know with Cargill, because we work with you, you've got great sponsors there, but for other organizations that might not have such buy-in from other leaders, there's an awareness of a business need, but there's maybe not the support for learning and development as a solution to that problem. What might you say to that?
So, okay, so if we think about that, the championing of the initiative has to be there at the highest level. And so one of the things that we make sure we do, and this also comes into play in the agile approach, is you're getting together with that sponsor, those key stakeholders right away, and you're doing it in 2-week cycles, so that if there is any, let's say, disconnect or gap or vacuum of key leadership support, you identify it right away, and you make sure that you have gained their not just their input, but really get their commitment and endorsement. And if there's something holding them back or there's a barrier, you can uncover it through that process. And sometimes it's as simple as putting together an impact map like this, maybe putting together a walking deck, really honing your hypothesis. So I'll zoom back, and sorry if you're getting nauseous from me zooming back around. But over on the left, it's kind of a little bit hard to read. I can zoom in, but it just building a walking deck, and you're making your business case and ensuring that they are, you can't pull this off without that high level support. And so I would just say, have those discussions and be bold about those discussions and say, this is what we need to make sure that we're all on the same page. and we're going to build this and we're going to iterate and we're going to figure it out together. But we need to make sure we're starting with a very clear, powerful hypothesis and a business rationale. Are you on board? Can we count on you? Right? That's what we establish up front. It's a little easier, and I'll just say it, that it's easier if sort of you already have that call to action, that clarion call from a C-level executive, which in this case we had that, but you still need to do the work to bring the other people, 1, 2, 3 levels down on board. So I wanted to move into, if it's okay, I just want to move into the second part of this, which is framing up the whole thing as a high performance learning journey. And I've put some visuals, and don't worry about it if you can't read the detail or the text here. It's more just visually. I wanted to kind of share the idea. With regard to thinking about learning as especially in a high impact learning situation like the one I'm talking about, thinking about it as a journey. Maybe I will zoom in a little bit. Just get this framed up here. Why not? Why not use Mural the way it's meant to be? So it might be a little fuzzy. I think this is a screenshot, but one of the things that we talk about at Cargill and in our L&D team is learning is not an event, and it's an experience. And the learner, this may sound obvious and strange to say it, but the learner should be front and center in kind of everything that you're thinking about. Now, sometimes that's easy just to say. Sometimes we as L&D professionals, I'll just be honest, sometimes forget about that learner experience in the center of it, and sometimes we're just doing things because they're more efficient, right? Or because we think that's the right thing to do. But when you think of it as a journey that the learner's going on, then it really helps you think about some of the steps. So they're committing to the journey, you're generating curiosity about that journey, you're building a foundation for their ongoing learning and development, you're practicing and developing skills, and so forth, right? So it's really helpful to visualize and map out. You don't have to use this exact thing, but just to think about that as a journey. And if you double click into your journey, so I'm kind of calling back to that course overview I showed you with the phases and the 10 weeks. If you double clicked into a phase, these are initial designs here, but you can see how the learner would traverse this. And I think one of the things to think about is not all moments in a learning journey are created equal, and nor should they be. So we call these moments that matter. So the ones that were their key interactions, where the learner, the facilitator, the coaches come together to achieve important learning objectives. So this is just an example of mapping out, okay, here's what the learner journey is, and here are some critical moments that matter. For example, the very first box here, coach and learner orientation, might seem obvious, but that's really your first chance. Think of it as a first date. It's my chance to make they've gotten some communication, right? They've registered, hopefully they've thought about it, talked to maybe their manager about it. But in terms of that first real in-person or virtual instructor-led interaction, the coach and learner orientation sessions are really your chance to really create that first impression and to establish the right tone, the energy, the mindset, right? The expectations. And then there's other key moments that matter. So I think it's a helpful thing to think about are where can you build in and really be thoughtful about those moments that matter. And then one other part of a high impact learning journey, and this is actually formally from Brinkerhoff. So I don't know if anyone else on the call has done the certification, but one great thing that our team did a year and a half or so, a year or so ago. I can't remember because it's all fuzzy since COVID, thanks to COVID, when we went through a learning certification program together in our team. We went through the Brinkerhoff High Performance Learning Journey certification. Really great program. And one of the things I found incredibly useful is to, first of all, think about when you're building a high performance learning journey, sort of what are the criteria for that? You know, not all learning needs to be a high performance learning journey. I mean, some are more like compliance training. Don't quite need to go to this level, but they have this list of 10 criteria. I just want to read these off really quick because I think this will, if you haven't seen this, let me zoom in a little bit. So think about these. Any program, any curriculum, any course you've built or are building, just think about these 10 things. I'll read them off really quickly. So number one, okay, the performance journey is grounded on an agreed program performance path. That means that you've gotten buy-in, you've gotten inputs that describes a clear logic from the business rationale to the learning outcomes. Sounds simple, right? So can you check the box on that? So ask yourself, and this is a great tool, by the way, to use before and after a program to evaluate the program. Did it do that? And if no, here's kind of, you know, the remediation step. Number two, the performance journey is designed to build commitment at the beginning and throughout the journey. So that's a really powerful question. Number three, the performance journey includes opportunities to identify and address barriers to performance improvement. So how often are we taking those barriers to learning and performance improvement head on and bringing those up and working together through those? Number four, performance journey provides opportunities for learners to develop and practice skills in an increasingly challenging set of scenarios. Number five, the performance journey provides learners with the opportunity to reflect and receive feedback. This is where coaches can be really valuable, or even just the manager checking in with the learner at certain points throughout the experience could be critically important. Number six, the performance journey is designed to drive on the job application of skills in the moments that matter. How are we going to use this on the job? How does this really work? Especially if you do small group and large group work with teams, that can be a really powerful design element to really bring on the job learning front and center. Seven, the performance journey content is relevant and as lean as possible. Let me say that again. It is relevant and as lean as possible. The challenge we have in learning development, folks, is not that we don't have enough content. The challenge is picking the most relevant, and I would say use this term, hyper relevant content. Do not throw everything in the kitchen sink in there. Curation is great, but curation can quickly go overboard, and creation of content as well. So just think about the learner and how much is getting thrown at them and really keep it lean and hyper relevant. Number eight, the performance journey is effective and efficient, and content is delivered in the most effective format. Not all formats are equal for what you're trying to achieve. We all know that, but again, good reminder. Number nine, performance journey offers opportunities to continue development beyond the official framework of the journey. So what happens next? What tools do we give the learner and the manager to sustain, maintain the learning? And then number 10, the performance journey is sufficiently stretched. So this is a good one. So think about, is it stretched enough? Is it occurring over enough time in enough different spaces? In-person, virtual, self-directed. Relationships are happening between coaches, between learners, maybe from different businesses. The tools and the structure and the linkage to the business. So this is just my favorite little checklist of things. And you might not say yes to all of them, and chances are you won't. But if you can start saying yes to, or say, okay, no, we don't, but here's how we're going to mitigate, or we're going to improve on this, it's a really good tool to use to design and evaluate.
Where do you think of the question around learning, different learning styles, and maybe more adaptive journeys, or just how well do you understand the learner do you need to understand the learner cohort and making sure you're offering, and making sure the program's really inclusive for people who learn in different ways? Or are you saying that that's going to happen by giving them a blend of experiences?
That's a great question. And I think of it in a couple of ways. So the simplest way I think to answer that is in a blended learning design, by its very nature, you are going to appeal to different learning styles at different times. And when we do our feedback surveys and when we actually do our coach check-ins, we are capturing data on where, in what modality, what formats are working best for certain learners versus others. But in a blended learning design, by its nature, you are accommodating for and serving, right? Typically serving those various learning style needs. The other thing I'll say, and maybe I'll just say that this is sort of Bob's opinion and maybe a little bit of insight or wisdom I've gained in my career, is just it's okay to get people out of their comfort zone, right? And so I get it. If it's not necessarily your cup of tea to do a lot of self-directed, maybe pre-work where you have to look at videos and read, or maybe you don't really enjoy or want to be immersed in a ton of workshops or small group sessions where you have to, speak or be kind of engaged that way. But I honestly, in all the years I've done this and all the courses we've built and launched and delivered, I've never had anyone say, "Oh, you didn't accommodate my learning experience." In fact, I've had people say, "Wow, I didn't think I was going to like the small groups as much as I did," or "Wow, those videos, like I normally just can't stand just watching, but that video series you did was awesome, and I showed it to my teammates." So I think the blended learning design captures it, but I also think let's get people out of their comfort zone. Does that help answer that question?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'd be interested if other people have different views on that, then because that's we often contend with that topic ourselves from time to time. We often give very challenging learning experiences, and some people don't like being taken out of their comfort zone. But often the people, when you're out of your comfort zone, that's when you're learning the most. But there's a different question, is there, around designing stuff that is digestible by everybody.
Yeah, it's, and there's going to be bits and pieces that are hopefully it's all digestible, and some pieces are going to really pop for people. And I also think, I'm a human being too, and I know sometimes I hem and haw or grumble about, okay, I got to go do that, and I really don't want to, but then I go do it, and I'm like, I'm glad I did that, right? So, and I think you can help with that. I mean, here's the other part that I didn't talk about, that I've added to that impact map that I showed. And maybe we don't talk about this enough. So when you think about the learner and the learner's journey, they're going on an emotional journey too. So it's not just learning, it's not just this robotic machine that's going through this experience. And I know we all know this, but how often do we explicitly think about what's the emotional journey and maybe the emotional kind of arc, the ups and downs that the learner might experience in this course or in this curriculum, right? And what can we do to acknowledge it, support it, and just give them the best, safest, most productive space, right? So what we typically do is when we do onboarding and orientation, we really pay attention to welcoming everybody in, making sure people just use that time and space to get to know each other. Like, we're going to get to the agenda, we're going to get to all this stuff eventually, but let's actually invest time in just getting to know each other. With our coaches too, they have to use Mural. They get a little freaked out if they haven't used a board like this before. So we just do some real simple, in the moment kind of onboarding into Mural. You know, we give them a lot of support and resources. So I just think thinking about the emotional journey is critical as well. So let me move on to the next piece. So I wanted to talk about this. It's a little bit of a favorite of mine, a topic of mine, but I also think it's really important as we are dealing in a very complex and chaotic world, and we're all probably wearing 3 or 4 hats or more, and we're stretched for time. Is and I just kind of came into this world of Agile about 2-3 years ago. I think for us, I'm just saying for what we've been doing and how we've been working in the last couple of years, that having an agile, little a agile and a capital A agile mindset is really a powerful way to go, and to think about how you design, develop, and even deliver. And so one of the key principles or things to think about when you're taking an agile mindset is delivering incremental value. And if you think about just incremental value, making some progress each and every day, as opposed to trying to build and launch this ginormous thing, having worked 8 months in a vacuum with your working group or your project team, and then all of a sudden, surprise, here's this ginormous thing. I think if you think about it as, no, we want to build increments of value, get input and feedback, and when you're doing the first cohort, or you're building a pilot course or a test and learn course, I think using an agile approach is the right way to go, and I've done it both ways for years. So a couple of things I've highlighted here. When you take an agile approach, you really are unlocking the power of the team, of teamwork. And a lot of times we're in a teamwork mindset with our stakeholders. Sometimes our sponsor is very involved, should be involved. It's a power of a team. This is a team sport. So what we try to do, and what I mean by this maybe a little bit more explicitly, is L&D isn't just going to take your request. We're not going to, I mean, there's certain projects we work on where you need something quick, and it's, we can build that. But if it's a curriculum or a course like this, we're in it together. So there's got to be a working group. People have to have skin in the game. It's a team. And when you do agile, the power of the team is that the team is empowered, but with that empowerment comes responsibility to get the work done. So you need that, and you need the leadership of the team members and the managers of the team members to understand that and realize that. But the power of the team, and then stakeholder input and feedback early and often. So over here, where I put the bold border around it, every 2 weeks we have a sprint. We run these as 2-week sprints. Every 2 weeks we have a sprint review. Every other sprint we'll do a big demo day, kind of master sprint review, where we invite all the stakeholder group in. And we're constantly sharing where we're at, what we need for feedback, and how do we keep fine-tuning and adjusting the product that we're creating, right, with their feedback and input. So everyone has a stake in the success of these things. Over here on the left, definition of done. So being really clear about when you're coming up with and developing the tasks, the work streams, really clear on the definition of done. And by the way, the image in the middle here is just a planner board, a sprint planner board. We use a Kanban board, if you will, and we also use Jira for just how do we manage and organize and prioritize the tasks that go into some of these programs. So defining done, definition of done, really powerful. We literally put that on our task cards or items so that it's clear what it is. Delivering increments of value, we talked about that. We talked about, we have these sprint reviews where it's a really powerful place and forum to discuss what's being created, to get input and feedback. Sprint retrospectives. So we do sprint retrospectives. We've also started doing retrospectives. I apologize if you hear my dog barking in the background there. We do sprint retrospectives with the team. And now we've started doing coach retrospectives and learner retrospectives. What these are, it's about how are people feeling about the way they're working, what's working, what's not. And then
but these
outcomes,
internal coaches or external coaches or managers of coach, who are your coaches?
Yeah, so it's a great question, Graham. So with regard to the program that I'm talking about right here, right, this particular sustainability course, it's internal coaches. But even if we were outsourcing, and we have done this in a sales manager coaching program, we would invite them in to do retrospectives. So while the sprint review is more about the stuff you're building, the product, the outputs, the sprint retrospective is more about the team and the team chemistry and the team work approach. And so we talk about things like how did this sprint go for you? What worked well for you? What didn't work well for you? And then how do we improve, or what action steps do you want to see to improve how it goes for this next sprint? And we'll do a retrospective at the end of the course with learners, and we'll say, in real time, we'll use a mural board like this, and we'll say, what worked for you? How did it go? Maybe what didn't work for you? And then what would you like to see us do differently? Again, I think it's in the spirit of being open, transparent, and collaborative. It just creates the right mood and the right vibe. And so I think it's a really sort of simple but cool, powerful tool. And then the last thing I'll talk about in terms of Agile. Agile is all about outcomes over outputs. And the difference there is the outcome is really, what is the behavioral change and impact that you've helped to create or helped to influence, versus just outputs, meaning, okay, a lot of stuff was created. So when I look at the project health, which we can talk about in the measurement piece, it's like, well, we created X number of assets, X number of our teamwork hours, X number of sprints. Those are all outputs, but the outcomes are, we literally equip people with the confidence. We've increased their confidence and their competence on these 5 skills. We've encouraged and we've promoted and created forums for greater interaction within commercial and sustainability teams. We've now empowered them. They've had more interaction, more successful interaction with the customer. There's more solution opportunities showing up in our CRM system. So outcomes over output should be your North Star, even though, yes, you're going to have a lot of outputs, but that's not what you should be mostly primarily focused on. Anyway, so I just wanted to give you kind of a behind the scenes on the Agile approach. And if you're using, taking an Agile approach, great. If you're not, happy to talk more about that at another time. Okay, I know we got like 10 minutes left. I got a couple sections left. How are we doing? Graham, how are we doing? Any other questions or things you want me to?
No, it's all good. No, looking forward to these last couple. Yeah.
Cool. All right, let's go to the green, my green section. So I'm bringing this image back that you saw earlier in the beginning of the course. And I just added some stickies here because there's more to it than just what you see in this graphic, right? So a couple things. Putting the learner in the center of the blended learning design and then leveraging your SMEs as content contributors and coaches, I think is awesome. And the more internal subject matter experts you can involve and encourage to be involved, the more co-ownership you have of these kinds of learning programs. So a couple of things going on here. We do a week 0 coach onboarding and learner orientation. We're very deliberate about those. We take time and effort to design those experiences so that they're very welcoming, they're very helpful, they're very context setting, expectation setting. I think having really clear expectations for anything you do in life, right? But especially when it comes to learning, what you're asking the coaches to do, how much time you're asking them to invest, and then the learner on those same dimensions is critically important. So week 0 is really important. We also provide weekly learner communication and encouragement. Here, let me zoom in a little bit for you. Even I need my glasses on this one. Okay, so weekly communication. So every week, every beginning section or phase, they're getting communication to partly just prompt them that, hey, a new week or a new pathway is opening up, but also encouragement, keep going, you're doing great. And also as a reminder, if we need, like, hey, make sure you complete that feedback survey from last week, whatever it is. So the weekly communication serves a lot of good purposes. And then while that's going on, we have these coach check-ins in each phase, because we want to give our coaches a chance to build rapport with the other coaches and with our team, our delivery team. And we are constantly asking, in the spirit of that retrospective, what's working well, what's not working well, and what action steps should we take to improve. So those coach check-ins, and we just had one yesterday or the other day, great feedback in those, and I can't tell you, they're just, it's super, super helpful. And the other thing about that is when the coaches know that you're supporting them from the L&D team's perspective, they're more confident, they're more engaged in helping the learner. It rubs off on the learners that are on there. If they're coaching a team or teams, it really, really does make a difference to have those coach check-ins throughout your learning experience. And then we do one also at the very end, where it's basically an after action review, and we take that feedback and we incorporate it into updates, changes that we make for the next class. And then the other thing I just share here is, when we're designing, we're thinking about it from a 70-20-10 perspective. So if you think about, it's not by accident, it's very deliberate that we're thinking about the bulk of the learning that really happens is on the job, right? So are you building the activities, the exercises, the content to encourage the on-the-job application? And are you creating enough time and space in the learning experience so that there can be some on-the-job application and some experimentation, and then they can come back and share how it's working or maybe not working? The 20% is the peer and social learning part, where I just think, again, unlocking your peer group, unlocking the social learning with small groups, large groups, even learning buddies, just pairing people up, doing assignments, having discussion, having a couple of questions that they can work through together. We do a thing in our final week 10 session where we pair them up, and they pair and share their learning journey experience, and then they make commitments to each other about what they're going to apply to the job, like literally the next week. So it's like, we're going to hit the ground running and apply this, and they make that commitment to each other in a pair and share. The 10% is the formal learning, and that is a lot of that content that they're doing, on their own, or maybe in a small group setting where they're working through some content together. So videos, articles, job aids, things like that. So we think about it all. Where our L&D team really moves the needle realistically is in the 10 and the 20. And then again, we try to enable and encourage the 70 in the design, in the materials, in the way we frame and emphasize on the job application. So that's that part. And then we're going to get to our final section on measuring impact. And I know we only have a few minutes left, so I just want to make sure we talk a little bit about this. So measuring impact, and I've laid this. It's a little too far. I've laid this table out using Kirkpatrick's model, level 4, 3, 1, and 2, and then project health down here. So point being, we do measure and we look at it from multiple levels. So if you think about Kirkpatrick's model, level 1 and 2 is around reaction and learning. So what's the quality, the relevancy of the content, the activities. So we look at things like percent of on-track learners, completion percentage, weekly learner and coach feedback, and then we look at NPS. Level 3, behavior change, we are looking at and measuring level of confidence and competence against key skills in these programs. Number and frequency of the internal collaborative conversations between, in this course, between our sales teams and our sustainability teams, and then number and frequency of collaborative conversations with the customer. And then
does that come from? Does that come from? Does that come from Salesforce or from CRM, or is that self-assessed?
It's both. We look at it from CRM and from self-assessed. So we're evolving and becoming better within our CRM. Right now, it's a process though, because not everything is captured. Like the keywords that we need to see aren't always in the CRM in Salesforce. So we do it at both. We look at how many, what's being logged into CRM, but we actually deploy a survey to all of our learners in terms of number and frequency, and we baseline it, and then we do it again in 6 and 12 months to see what kind of improvement we're getting. So that's level 3, and then level 4, impact on the. So this is the level 4 is about results. So impact on the organization, and we look at improvements in the customer engagement and customer experience. Metrics that come back from those surveys that actually go to customers, number of sustainability related opportunities in the pipeline. And the ones I've colored in blue are ones that we consider leading indicators. And so as you get this data in, and if you're doing it over time and taking an agile approach and you're capturing feedback, we're literally capturing feedback in each phase of the program. And we're also playing that feedback or those results back to our stakeholders. You're going to see some really interesting data coming in that are leading indicators, and then some of the ones in white boxes here are more of the lagging indicators that take some time to get that data back. So you're going to have a mix of both leading and lagging indicators. But these are the things we look at. And then finally, just project health, looking at resource allocation and utilization, looking at time to value measured in weeks and sprints, and then other factors, including things like how much content was curated versus created, and then what process improvements you've realized and made along the way. And we pull that data out of things like our task planner, our JIRA boards, stakeholder feedback, and sprint retrospectives. So that's that. And I know I am at time. So Graham, I used it all up.
No, I mean, it turned into like a masterclass. I don't think I've ever learned so much about how L&D actually works, which is maybe worrying for someone who's works in the space. But that Kirkpatrick model is just so interesting, how the way you actually deploy that. I think there's so much insight there for other professionals in this space, because that's a real challenge, is moving beyond the happy sheets, is we find. So yeah, nothing more to add from me. Really, thank you so much, Bob. I know lots of people watching this on recording as well who couldn't make it live today, but we will make sure to follow up email. We share Bob's LinkedIn and email. I'm sure you're happy to connect with.
My pleasure.
With our network, and Yeah, thank you to Bob for your time and insights, and thank you to everyone who's attended and watched. And look out for info on our on the next sessions, which will be probably a couple of months' time. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Graham. Appreciate it.